Is your practice tired of wrestling with insurance denials, deciphering EOBs, and watching your revenue slip through the cracks? You are not alone. Welcome to The Claim Game, the podcast designed to cut through the confusion and provide you with the best practices for revenue cycle management success. We are Jeremy and Catherine Zug, and we've been with people just like you in the trenches. Each week, we'll break down complex billing processes, share real-world solutions from practices like yours, and ask questions of the game makers and changers of healthcare so you can take control of your revenue. Let's turn those claim denials into deposits and help you return to focusing on patient care. It's time to win the claim game.
If you're running a private practice, you've likely realized that there's a strange paradox at the heart of the work that you're doing. On the one hand, you are a clinician, a provider. You sometimes deal with the intangible, like emotions or breakthroughs or human growth, or even some other tangibles like tests and diagnoses and other very clinical driven work. On the other hand, you're a business owner and you deal with the hyper tangible. You deal with overhead and payroll and also the increasingly complex world of insurance. The struggle most of us face, or most of you face, isn't that you aren't good at the business part of running your practice or organization. It's that we try to apply clinical logic to billing problems. In a clinical session or setting, wait and see can be a profound tool or a strategy. You give the client space to process or to heal or to grow, and you allow the silence to do a lot of the heavy lifting. But in billing and dealing with insurance, wait and see is a slow motion train wreck. If you wait and see with a claim, the only thing that processes is the expiration of your timely filing limit. In this particular season of the claim game, we're using the metaphor of a board game to map out your revenue cycle management, or RCM. We're moving through each of the 6 domains of billing, one territory at a time. And last time we were here, we sat down with a good friend of mine, Nicole Brewer, for a deep dive practice audit. We looked at the insides of what a successful practice looks like and the systems that you need to diagnose the illness in your billing department and to move forward with a sustainable business model. If you haven't heard that episode, feel free to go back and listen. Nicole is a wealth of knowledge and wisdom, and it provides a lot of context you need for how to run your practice. Today, we're going to zoom in and look at reviewing claim information, and we're going to talk through frame by frame what it looks like to review a clean claim. We're going to talk about the system and processes and checkpoints and some of the tools that we offer for you to be able to master a first pass strategy. Most billers and most practice owners focus on the back end, chasing the money once it's already late or once it's old. But the true masters of the game, the practices and organizations that are growing and that are successful, focus on the front end. They make sure that a claim is perfect and pristine so that an insurance company has no barrier, no bump in the road, and no choice but to pay a clean claim. That's what we call a high first pass rate. So today we're going to walk you through the do-it-yourself claim information review guide that's available on the Hourglass to show you exactly how to achieve that. So let's get started. Let's look at setting the board and the one payer rules. In revenue cycle management, winning means getting paid on the first submission. So the first time that you ask. And most people think that billing starts when you hit the submit button in your electronic health record system. But in reality, that's the final move. That's the last thing that you should be doing. And the real work is the setup of a clean claim. And if you've been following along in our blog at the Practice Solutions website, you might have seen our post, The Therapist's Guide to the Billing Process. And we talk about how patient registration is actually the most important step in the entire cycle. So to ensure that high first pass rate and faster payment occurs, a biller should perform several key steps before even submitting a claim. So whether you have a biller or whether you're the one doing it, here are some of the steps that we recommend you take in order to set up your claim submission in a way that's helpful. So first, you want to navigate to your electronic health record system and document any issues you have. So the overall process of reviewing claim information starts by navigating to wherever your claims congregate and can be submitted within your system. Usually this particular window is tucked away by 4 menus and maybe designed by someone who really hates sunlight. But once you're there, you don't just start by clicking send. You need tools. And so it's incredibly useful to have your claim management spreadsheet accessible for documenting any issues that may arise during this review. We see so many billers and clinicians try to keep track of errors in their head. And unless you are a literal supercomputer, you'll forget why a claim was held back or why it's pending resubmission. So you need to document it, find a pattern, and make sure that you're not just resubmitting denied claims or rejected claims. The next step in the process is to have what we call a one-payer filter. This is a tactical rule, but we want to filter by one payer at a time. And this is really a non-negotiable rule for us, because your biller, or you, if you're doing the billing, which you shouldn't be, because I think you're going to be the highest paid, most frustrated biller in the country. Let's say you have a biller, and we think that your biller should be working one payer at a time. So why one payer? Because every insurance company, every payer has a personality, if you will, right? One payer has a different workflow, a different portal login, a different system than a different payer, right? And you want to be able to adapt to these different languages or flavors when you're dealing with them in batches, right? So when you filter by payer, you allow your brain to calibrate to that specific insurance company's rules. Next, you want to complete all the review steps for one insurance company before you think about moving to the next. Bouncing between one insurance company to another is how you end up sending, let's say, a government payer claim with a private insurance group number, or it's a great way to meet your clearinghouse's rejection robot. We want to think about this as folding laundry, right? You don't just fold it one sock and then go wash a dish and then you come back and fold a shirt, right? You want to finish the task that you're on and stay in a flow, right? In billing, that flow is what prevents simple errors from occurring and costing you thousands of dollars in delayed revenue. So let's walk through the player pieces, if you will, and look at a checklist that you'd want to verify. So let's talk about new patients. You need a comprehensive review of new patients' demographic and insurance information to ensure it matches their driver's license, insurance ID, or intake form. As we mentioned, we have a blog, another blog post mentioned the anatomy of an intake problem, and most denials are actually intake diseases that start at the front desk. Insurance companies are like really picky eaters, if you will. If the data isn't prepared exactly right, they'll send it back to you, the kitchen, and tell you to start over. So let's go through a checklist of what you're trying to verify for your patient's information before you move forward. First, you want to look at their insurance infrastructure. You need to verify the insurance type. Is this Medicare, Medicaid, or private insurance? If you check the private box, and there's a box on a HCFA form for Medicare or Medicaid or private insurance, but if you check the private insurance box for a Medicare patient, the claim is dead on arrival. That claim's not moving forward. You also need to the exact insurance company name. So here comes a digital signature, right? Because keep in mind, insurance claims don't get sent over with a picture of the claim. It gets translated into a line of code at the clearinghouse and then forwarded on. So you need to make sure that the payer ID for this exact insurance company is correct. If you use the wrong payer ID, it's like mailing a letter to the right person at the wrong zip code. It's not going to go anywhere. So even in 2026, mail still matters. So you need to verify the address for claim submission if you're mailing a paper claim, and then check the numbers. So you need to check the insurance ID number and the group number. And keep in mind, a single missing digit here is 100% guarantee of a rejection. Don't think about these as just digits or numbers on a card. Think about them as keys to a treasure chest, right? The insurance company's bank account vault. You got to have those exactly right in order to unlock that treasure chest. Next, you want to verify the patient identity and demographics. This is where this podcast episode is going to get dry, but it's really important. You need to verify the patient name exactly as it's shown on the insurance card. Last name, first name, middle initial. We've seen claims get denied because someone uses Bob instead of Robert, right? So you need to make sure that even a nickname is eliminated from the claim. You need to get the name exactly right. Insurance companies don't do nicknames. They don't really care. They just care about what's on the card. Next, you need to confirm the patient's date of birth and biological sex, and then double check the patient address. If the address in your EHR doesn't match the address the insurance company has on file, they could flag it for a denial or reject it at the clearinghouse level, and essentially you'll start the claim submission process over. Last, you need to double check the subscriber and secondary coverage. So if the patient isn't the primary holder, you need the name of the subscriber and the patient's relationship to the subscriber. You also need that person's date of birth and all of their demographic information as well. And I know this isn't just nosiness. The computer system needs to link the patient to whoever the policy holder is. And then last but not least, check for secondary insurance information if that's applicable. Missing secondary information is like leaving half your money on the sidewalk. So we don't want to do that. This episode is brought to you by Jane, a practice management software and EMR built to support you in the day-to-day work of running your practice. If you're a health or wellness practitioner, you already know the care you provide starts well before your client arrives and extends far beyond the treatment room. Jane is there to support you in every part of that experience. With online booking, your clients can book at a time that works for them. And with features like notifications, they'll even be able to grab last-minute openings when they pop up. It's an easy way to keep your schedule full while getting your clients the care they need. During your appointment, Jane's AI-powered documentation feature can help you thoughtfully take notes so you can stay present with the person in front of you. And after appointments, you can end your time together on a healing note, not a transactional one, by charging the card on file. To learn more about how Jane can support you and your clients, head to jane.app/demo. And one last thing, if you're ready to get started with Jane, you can use my code in the show notes for a 1-month grace period on your new account. Let's talk about the next step in the process. So for new patients, the guide that we have in the Hourglass suggests you may want to submit a test claim to prevent widespread rejections or denials. That may or may not be applicable. We'd love to talk to you about when it is. Feel free to subscribe to the Hourglass and submit an Ask the Biller question if you have specific questions about when it's worth submitting a test claim, and we can go from there. So next we go to, when you review a claim, we want to do a clinical and financial audit of that claim. This is where we get into appointment information, and it's where clinical logic and billing logic often go to war. We published another blog post called The Garden of Claims, and there's a perfect metaphor here. If you don't weed your CPT codes and modifiers, your revenue garden will never produce fruit. So first, we want to review the amount charged to the patient, whether it's a deductible, copay, or co-insurance amount. And then we need to review your CPT codes. Specifically, we want to look for unusual CPT codes for the services typically performed by your providers. So if your provider suddenly bills for, let's say you have a therapist, right, who bills for heart surgery, something has gone very wrong, right? And so we want to make sure that the codes matched with the provider type makes sense. You also need to review the modifier requirements. And this is essential to identify when and where modifiers are needed and to ensure they're properly applied to claims. You should be checking for documentation about necessary modifiers and referring to the modifier usage guide. A missing modifier is like forgetting to put stamps on an envelope. It's technically correct inside, but it's not going to go anywhere. Next, you want to look for prior authorization and claim rates. Make sure that if this claim needs prior authorization, one, you have it, and that the active prior authorization number is attached to that claim. And then you also want to look at rates, right? So you want to make sure you're billing the correct rates for the insurance company. I'll give you a good example of when this goes south. We recently went to a conference. We went to the WAFCA conference in Wisconsin, their leadership summit. We connected with an organization there who was curious about our rate comparison tool in the Hourglass. We looked up their rates for a particular insurance company compared to what they were getting paid, and they weren't charging enough as a charged rate, and they were leaving about $15 per claim on the table. So that's a good example of when you need to raise your rates on the charged amount Now, that could have implications for what you charge your clients for deductible or your private pay clients. So you can't do that flippantly, but it's a good example of why you need to review your contracted rates relative to your charged rates and make sure you're not leaking any revenue there. Finally, you need to look at date of service and diagnosis. So review the diagnosis code. Diagnosis codes have to be present, right? The biller should ensure that providers are properly assigning codes and document any codes that routinely cause denials on the insurance contact reference list. A claim without a diagnosis code is also not going anywhere. And then finally, at date of service, make sure that they're accurate and within timely filing limits. And you also want to review the place of service code to make sure the place of service code and modifiers all match. Now, look, I know that's a lot of information, and that's a long checklist of things for your biller to do, but I promise that if they follow a checklist each and every time and they catch any of those inconsistencies, your revenue will flow much, much easier. And if that's also too much work for you, if you're the one doing the billing, outsource your billing. Our billers would be more than happy to work with you and your practice to make sure that you are reclaiming all of the time that you're doing billing back in your schedule so you can dedicate that to growing the organization. We also love doing it. So unless you absolutely love doing it, we would love to do it for you. So please reach out if that's something that, if all of this detail that I'm going over sounds horrifying, we would love to talk to you about it moving forward. So the last look before you submit the claim here is the provider information. So if a provider is submitting claims to a specific payer for the first time, their credentials on file with the insurance company should be verified against what's in your electronic health record. As we mentioned before, this is where a test claim would be absolutely valuable to submit to the insurance company. I know that for providers that are initially credentialed, they probably have a lot of clients built up. And what I don't want you to do is submit 50 claims to the insurance company for the first time. There's a small error or there's an issue on the insurance company's side, and now you have 50 denials that you need to work through that really would be frustrating to navigate through. So my request to you would be, if that's the situation that you're in, submit a test claim. If that's not the situation you're in and you're sure, then you can move forward. But you want to make sure that provider identifiers and addresses are correct. So you want to make sure that their NPI type 1 and type 2 and your tax ID, either your EIN or social security number, is correct. If you're playing in the Medicare space, verify that the PTAN and the Medicare provider ID, licensure level, and billing address are also correct. And then before you submit claims, look at the batch, right? Review claims set for resubmission. Rejected claims will be set for resubmission, and the biller must review the rejections before you submit the claim, or denials, right? We recently posted a blog called the $900,000 pile. You really need to know the denial resolution is what it is and if it's done to make sure that you can recover that money. And then finally, you submit the the claims, right? And it's time to select the appropriate claims and submit them. A claim should be submitted to the clearinghouse either twice a month, weekly, or multiple times a week, depending on your size. Some of you are working within EHRs and clearinghouses that charge you per claim submission. So what we recommend is all the work that we just outlined takes a significant amount of time and effort in order to complete. And so what I think is really valuable, especially if you're being charged by the claim submission, make sure you do it in batches. You can cut some cost there. To be frank with you, insurance companies don't really care how often you submit claims. You can submit claims daily. Doesn't mean they're going to pay you daily. It means they're going to pay you when you submit clean claims. So an important note there for sure to go ahead and move forward there. So as a concluding sentiment, revenue cycle management is won or lost in the details. By following our review guide, which you can get in the Hourglass, you're not just sending claims, you're ensuring that the aging category in your revenue cycle management process stays as small as possible. There's another blog that we posted called Why Your Bank Balance is a Trap. You need to look at your first pass rate, not just your deposits. The data here tells a story. If your first pass rate is low, go back to these steps from this episode, check everything and make sure that you're not falling into any sort of administrative trap. And you really can't wait and see, right? That's not a good billing strategy. Be proactive, be precise, and be clinical in your review of your claims, but business-minded in your execution. The next time we're here, we're going to be talking with a game changer. We'll be talking with Dr. Badillo Diaz, who's the AI therapist, and we're really excited to talk with her about how to implement AI in the life of your practice. So we have this checklist on the Hourglass. Feel free to subscribe to that if that is something you'd like to download. We also have our rate comparison tool there. Until next time, keep your data clean and your claims moving. I'm Jeremy Zug, and this has been The Claim Game.
If you enjoyed today's episode of The Claim Game, please take a moment to leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really helps new listeners to find us. Make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to The Claim Game on your favorite podcast app. Your feedback means so much to us. We want to provide valuable education about revenue cycle management. So if there's something we didn't cover in our topic that was a burning question for you, please let us know so we can try to get you the information you desire. You can find the links to all resources we mentioned in this episode in the show notes. And if you want to dive deeper into our resources, we have two places you can do that. First, you can go to our blog at practicesol.com/blog, where we have 8 years of educational blogs. If you want to learn more about what Practice Solutions does, reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Just go to practicesol.com to learn more and to connect with one of our awesome people on our team. Thanks for listening. We are Jeremy and Catherine Zug, and this is The Claim Game. See you at the game table next time.